Hello, and welcome to My Stories. Today, from my horror collection, please enjoy The Velvet Mirror by Martha M.C. Jenkins. The house had called to me, not with a voice, but with a whisper of forgotten time, a promise of peace nestled amongst its ancient, groaning timbers. I'd seen it online, a faded photograph of a sprawling Victorian tucked away on a forgotten lane, miles from the relentless hum of the city I'd fled. A fresh start, that's what I told myself. A new slate, scrubbed clean in the quiet solitude of an old house. Kate, the girl who'd always tried too hard, who'd been too much or not enough, was to be shed like an old skin. The reality was more imposing than the pictures. Sunlight fought a losing battle against the dust motes dancing in the long, narrow hallways. Each floorboard protested my weight with a mournful creak, and the air itself felt heavy, thick with the scent of age and untold stories. Isolation was what I'd sought, and isolation was what I found, a pervasive blanket that muffled the outside world and amplified the thrum of my own heartbeat. It was unsettling, yes, but also liberating, or so I persuaded myself as I unpacked boxes filled with books and, my weakness, beautiful antique objects. The mirror arrived on a Tuesday, carried by a gruff delivery man who seemed eager to escape the house's palpable stillness. It was wrapped meticulously in layers of thick crimson velvet, a protection that hinted at its preciousness. I'd found it in an online auction described only as Victorian-era, silvered glass, excellent condition. It was a splurge, a significant chunk of what little savings I'd managed to cling to, but the moment I'd seen its ornate dark wood frame, intricately carved with swirling, almost organic designs, I'd known I had to have it. It felt like a piece of history I was destined to own, a secret waiting to be discovered. I carried it myself, struggling with its unexpected weight, down the longest, darkest hallway, a perfect spot. Sunlight rarely dared to touch this particular corridor, leaving it perpetually cloaked in shadow, a liminal space between the brighter living areas and the bedrooms. As I wrestled with the hanging wire, the velvet peeled away, revealing its surface. It was untouched by time, impossibly clear, like a polished sheet of still water. No cracks, no dulling of the silver, a pristine window into somewhere, or something. My reflection greeted me, or what I thought was my reflection. It was my face, yes, but subtly wrong. My eyes, usually a soft hazel, seemed to glitter with an unnatural intensity, and my mouth, usually hesitant, was stretched into a grin that felt wider than it should be, revealing just a fraction too many teeth. A trick of the light, I rationalized, blaming the dimness of the hallway. I adjusted the mirror, tilting it slightly, but the grin remained, unnervingly fixed, a caricature of my own relief at finally having it hung. I frowned, and the reflection frowned, but the eerie gaiety in its eyes remained, just beneath the surface of my own fleeting confusion. I pulled back, shaking my head. It was just an old mirror, settling into its new home. It promised a fresh start, after all. Over the next few days, the mirror became a fixture in my solitary routine. I'd pass it countless times, always catching my gaze, always feeling that subtle tug of unease. It wasn't always dramatic. Sometimes it was just the way my reflection held its head an inch higher, or the faint, almost imperceptible twitch at the corner of its eye that wasn't mirrored in my own face. When I was tired, when the silence of the house pressed in on me like a physical weight, that grin would shimmer to the forefront, a brief, unsettling flash of manic glee that would vanish the moment I focused. I started talking to myself more often, a habit cultivated by the enforced quiet. little whispers, half-formed thoughts that articulated the growing anxieties. "You're imagining things, Kate," I'd murmur, catching my reflection's gaze. It would nod, my own head tilting in agreement. But those eyes, they held a different understanding, a glint of something predatory. I began to avoid direct eye contact, opting instead to glance quickly, peripherally as I passed. This only made it worse. Out of the corner of my eye, I'd catch it, a momentary, grotesque distortion. My reflection would be peering back at me with a stark, wide-eyed curiosity, its mouth a gaping, silent scream of joy. And then, as I whipped my head around, it would snap back to my familiar, if slightly off-kilter face. It felt less like a reflection and more like a separate entity, observing me, learning me. I was the naive, isolated young woman seeking escape in the past, and it was a watchful predator. The house, with its long, oppressive hallways and dim lighting, became a stage, and I, the unwilling performer. I stopped reaching out to the few distant acquaintances I still had. The outside world felt dull, irrelevant, compared to the subtle, terrifying drama unfolding in my own hallway. My life began to revolve around those fleeting, unsettling glimpses. One evening, I returned to the house after a quick trip to the nearest village for supplies. The autumn air had grown colder, and the shadows were already long, stretching like grasping fingers across the lawn. Inside, the house was a mausoleum of silence. I flicked on the hallway light, its single bulb casting a sickly yellow glow that did little to dispel the gloom. My reflection appeared as I trudged past, my arms laden with groceries. This time, the shift was undeniable. The reflection moved first. My right arm was heavy with a bag of apples, my left a carton of milk. My reflection, however, lifted its empty left hand, a slow, deliberate motion. Its fingers, long and slender, curled into a crooked, beckoning gesture. "Come closer." The breath hitched in my throat. I dropped the groceries with a crash. Apples rolled across the dusty floorboards. Milk splattered, a white bloom against the dark wood. But I barely registered it. My eyes were fixed on the mirror. The grin was back, stretched wider than before, revealing every single one of its too many teeth, sharp and pointed. Its eyes, those unnatural, twitching eyes, were locked onto mine, burning with an ancient, hungry intelligence. It didn't just beckon, it commanded, a silent, irresistible pull. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through me, but it was overlaid with something else, a strange, almost desperate curiosity. A longing. For what? I couldn't say. For an answer? For understanding? Or perhaps for whatever wild, untamed thing lurked beneath the calm surface of my own carefully constructed composure, the thing that the mirror seemed to promise. My feet moved, unbidden, one step, then another. The hallway lights flickered, a frantic struggle against the encroaching darkness. With each step, the reflection's grin widened, its eyes growing brighter, more triumphant. It was almost as if it was pulling me, not just with its crooked finger, but with an invisible cord, drawing me into its depths. I reached the mirror, my hand trembling as I stretched it out towards the glass. My reflection's hand rose to meet mine, its palm pressed against the seemingly solid surface. For a heartbeat, our hands were almost aligned, separated by nothing but the veil of polished glass. And then the reflection pushed, not physically, but a surge of pure, raw energy that slammed into me, knocking the air from my lungs. The house groaned around me, a sound like a ship breaking apart in a storm. The single bulb in the hallway exploded, plunging everything into Stygian blackness. When the after-image of the flare faded and the oppressive silence of the house reasserted itself, there was only darkness. And then a faint, almost imperceptible gleam of light from the hallway. The mirror hung empty on the wall, its surface utterly blank, reflecting nothing but the dusty, shadowed emptiness of the corridor. The crooked finger, the too many teeth, the twitching eyes, all gone. And Kate was gone. The quiet of the house was profound, a comfortable, ancient quiet that settled into every corner, every dust mote. The hallway shimmered with a faint internal light, not from the blown bulb, but from the surface of the antique mirror. It was no longer a window, but a seamless, dark expanse. A small smile played on my lips. My new lips. They felt strangely pliant, capable of stretching in ways they never had before. My fingers, long and slender, curled around the smooth, familiar wood of the frame. It was done. The cage was empty. I stepped back, surveying the hallway. It was just as it had been, the dropped apples still scattered, the milk a drying stain. A perfect tableau of abandonment. But the air was different now, vibrant, alive with a new kind of energy. Mine. The seeking had ended, the escape was complete, and the door, so long unopened, was finally gloriously flung wide. Kate had sought a fresh start, and I, the raw, untamed thing she had repressed, had finally found mine. The house felt less like a prison and more like a throne, and I, the rightful inhabitant, had only just begun to truly see it. My gaze lingered on the empty mirror. A sly, knowing grin touched my face. My face. It was finally mine, and it would no longer be alone. The house had so much to offer, so many secrets to learn, so many doors to open. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Please also feel free to check out my webpage. Link is in the description. Until next time, my love to you all.